Good evening. My name is Sean Young. Opening the sorry, April 16th, 2024 open meeting. I am the conservation agent for the Town of Newbury Conservation Commission. Please let me confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Conservation members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bob Connors,
Yes.
Brad Duffin,
Yes.
Diane O'Brien,
Yes.
Mary Rimmer, coming later. Mick Brown? No Mick?
Mick is here, but he might be on mute. Let me just double check.
Okay. DJ Conti?
TJ texted
think
that
so.
he's calling in.
Okay. And
Look.
Woody Knight?
Yes.
Check the waiting room again, Sean, just to make sure. Mick might have get kicked out.
Yeah, here
Get back in.
I'm not sure.
Yep, no, there he is. It seemed
Can
like
you hear me?
Hi, Mick. Are you there?
okay. Mick, are you on your iPhone? You're on mute if you are.
I just had to switch computer screens.
Oh, okay.
So sorry about that.
No, thank you, Mick. Okay, so
Good evening.
so Sean, we have everyone but TJ and Mary at this point for your
Yep.
roll call.
TJ could be the iPhone. You said he was going to call in.
Well,
Maybe.
we have a quorum, so we'll go get going, and TJ will certainly chime in when the time is appropriate.
Good evening. This April 16th, 2024 open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with the act relative to the extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, which extends the governor's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL 30A 20, until March 31st, 2025. This order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location and allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and/or telephone conference, and the recording will be available on the Newbury YouTube Access channel. Meeting materials were provided to the commission members prior to the meeting for review. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective or clear conduct of our business and ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Proponents will be given time. After they conclude their remarks, we will go down the list of commission members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, question, or motion. Please hold until your name is called. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sean. All right, upcoming meeting dates, May 7th and May 21st. First matter before the commission is meeting minutes review. We have the March 19th meeting minutes. Why don't we take a moment, review those, see if there's any questions, comments, or corrections.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Okay. All those in favor, roll call vote. Woody,
Yes.
Brad,
Aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, the next meeting minutes for review is our April 2nd meeting minutes. Are there any questions or concerns? or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes for April 2nd?
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
second? Okay. Roll call vote, all in favor? Woody,
Yes.
Brad,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. TJ, good evening. We just went through the meeting minutes and we're going to be going on to our first RDA. Okay. Request for a determination of applicability. Our file number 4403 Gerard Way. For repairing existing deck with footings, adding an emergency egress staircase. Is the applicant present, and do they have, would they like to make a presentation?
They should be present, or they told me they were going to be present.
Hey. Is there anyone from the Mahoney family that is present? If you are, you may be on mute.
Hi,
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yep, he's there.
There you go. You're on the iPhone.
sorry guys. Yeah, I'm on the iPhone.
All right. Hi, I'm Bob Connors. I'm chair of the commission, and we're reviewing your RDA request. You want to give us an overview of what you're looking to do?
You're talking about the address at 3 Girard Street?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, what I'm gonna do there is basically remove the existing deck.
Hold on,
build a
let me put it on
Uh-huh.
the 1 second. Since you're on an iPhone, I can share my screen. Oh boy.
Well, why don't you make your presentation, and then while Sean is pulling up the file to share it for the rest of us, we can hear what you're looking to do.
Mhm. Yeah, basically I'm removing the existing deck and just building a new deck, the same layout, using composite materials. I put a photos and presentation together so you guys can see what's there right now and what's proposed. We're not gonna be digging the ground. We're gonna do like a helical piers, which is gonna be mechanically installed in order to avoid disturbance on for the ground.
Okay. Question, what's the elevation of the deck above grade?
There is now is about like 6 feet.
Oh,
Right
okay.
there.
Yeah, there
So
we
it's
go.
putting, yeah, right there.
Okay.
So that's the existing deck right there. And then I think it's gonna show more information. Yeah, that's all the pictures. That's how the footings information, so how it's gonna grow down. Not just like framing. So there you have all the information for the deck.
Okay. So just to do a recap, you're replacing existing deck. You're not expanding the footprint. You're
Nope.
keeping it at the same elevation. And you're going to, what currently do you have for piles? Is it sonotube, concrete, or what is supporting the deck now?
Right now, they have a combination of sonotube and some concrete.
Okay. Are you planning on removing that after you put your helical piles in? And
No, unless you guys tell me to. I'm not planning on disturbing the ground at all.
okay. All right, why don't I hold there? Question from the members. TJ, any questions on this RDA?
Only going to the point of the concrete and the sonotubes. isn't it better to remove them than just leave them?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, TJ, typically, we would ask the applicant, if they weren't reusing them, to remove them.
To remove them?
And be no harm, no foul doing that.
But let me ask you guys something. The whole point about the helical piers was not to disturb the ground, right? Now I'm digging all the footing to remove the existing concrete.
Yeah, the piers are so it doesn't float away.
Yeah. Typically, the concrete wouldn't
and-
be applicable, wouldn't be allowed today. And traditionally, it's been removed. And helical piles would be the preferred method,
We're
or
gonna ask Wes
diamond
for-
piers.
But that would be the
Well-
tip, to remove it, not just leave it.
Right.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. All right, thank you, TJ. Woody, any questions, for the applicant?
No,
My only question was if the sonotubes are being removed. So other than that, no.
Okay,
Yeah. Yes.
okay, Brad, any questions for the applicant on this matter?
I'm good, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Mick, how about yourself? Any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, and Diane, any questions?
You mentioned this,
I
and
don't
when I was
know.
reading, there's gonna be a concrete slab at the bottom of the stairs. Is that new or is that there now? Are you replacing one?
That's a new one.
And how large is it?
3 feet by 2 feet, just to comply to code.
Unmuted.
Anything else, Diane?
No.
Okay, so the only thing is typically, once you abandon using the sonotubes, they're traditionally removed.
All right, if you guys want me to remove, I'll comply with that. No problem.
Okay, and other than that, you're doing a exact swap, the size. The big thing, what we always ask is, use your current driveway for a staging area for materials. Avoid putting anything on the vegetation on your lot.
Okay.
And those are typically the guidance. And if you have any questions at all, just contact John Young, our conservation agent, and he'll help you work you through the process.
I will do that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from anyone? Any questions from the public? Any raised hand on this matter?
I have a question, Bob.
Go ahead, then.
When I'm reading this, he's adding an emergency egress staircase. Is that staircase not there now?
No, that's the staircase is part of the deck, so it is there right now.
Oh, okay, so it's not
Yeah,
like,
it's
So the
okay,
stairs are.
it just said adding a staircase, and I saw the plan and I saw there was a staircase. I didn't know if there's another one or an emergency egress or something going in that I didn't.
No, that's the same as the
Okay.
deck.
Yeah, it's
So same
being
stairs.
it's being used as a second form of egress for the house.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so. Okay, team, any other questions?
No,
All right, is there a motion to issue a negative finding for 3 Garrett Way, or Garrard Way, or however the heck you pronounce that?
So
So
moved.
moved. So moved.
Okay,
Second,
roll call, all in favor? Woody,
Yes.
TJ,
aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Thank you, good luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, next matter of business is an RDA for our file number 441-17 Harvard Way. Generator Supercenter for installation of a whole home 18 kW generator with an automatic switch. Sean, can you provide us an overview on this one? I think the applicant was here. You know, let me go right to the applicant, Sean.
Hi.
Okay, Mary, hang on one second. Mary, we're on the second RDA.
Thank
It's
you.
Generator for 17 Harvard Way.
Hi, guys. I'm just gonna chime in. This is Nick. I come up as Matt Calder, but my name's Nick. I'm the project manager with Generator Super Center, and John's also here on the call with us, who's my salesperson. So we'll work in conjunction to hopefully answer any questions or help or do anything we can.
Okay, well, why don't you describe what you're planning on doing? Is Sean, on the application, is there a plot plan or a sketch that shows where the proposed location is?
There is a plot plan with a square on it.
Yeah, could you post that up, put that up, share that with the members?
So that's the proposed location.
Okay. Do we have any pictures of this area?
I do. They were taken from the public way.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, why don't you just scroll through those pictures, Sean, if you could.
I think we're mm,
On the slope there. This one is probably more descriptive.
yeah,
It's in that open area there.
yeah, that's a more accurate picture there, I believe.
Okay. What is the flood zone in this, Sean? Do we know?
So the ground height, well,
Yeah, I'm just looking for
okay,
what.
the ground height is 10, is average. It depends on where you are. If you're on that slope, it could be anywhere from 10 to higher. The flood zone is AE 13.
Okay. All right, why don't I
So
open?
depending on where they put it, it could change because that's, as you can see, it's a slope. So
So, Nick, what are you proposing for a platform as a base for this generator install?
Okay, so my first question is after hearing the last one, we're obviously opposed to sonotubes, which we would typically use, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, this is an issue with the concrete being in direct contact with the earth.
It is a DEP. It's a DEP manner that concrete sonotubes are, no longer encouraged to be used.
Okay, even if there was like a plastic lining or something.
Yeah, it's the concrete.
Okay. So that being said, so that's off the table. So our second option is like a diamond pair system, which uses John, do you have?
Yeah, no, we're familiar with
Yeah,
it.
so
Yeah.
we would drive the stakes in and use the diamond pair platform as a footing, and then mount a 2-foot aluminum stand, and then the generator goes on top of that.
Okay.
So there's a specialty stand we use that's specially designed for the generators. It's rated and everything. It's rated for wind loads and flooding and everything like that. Of course, it's aluminum, so it stands up. And we would use the diamond pair system for the feet, and then it would be 2 feet above that. Then the generator would go on top.
Okay, what is the power source or the fuel source? Is it propane or diesel?
Liquid propane, John?
Yes, that's perfect time for me to interject. So this whole process started when we found a customer who was interested in the generator. They had existing liquid propane tanks on site. So the first thing we did was come to the town to make sure there was nothing wrong with those existing propane tanks. And then we presented the generator installation, excuse me, with the sonotubes, and that's when we found that those were no longer viable. So Sean was very helpful in providing us some input on some alternatives, which Nick just mentioned to you about the diamond pier. So what our main accomplishment for me, at least especially today, is to find out what is acceptable so that we can then go back to the customer. Because the customer already purchased our initial quote, which included the 2-foot stand and the sonotubes, which we made him aware that are no longer viable. And we're just making sure that the alternative that we go back to him with is viable and that we can proceed forward and give him a cost price for that.
Okay, so propane, how do you plan to run from the tanks to the generator? Are you gonna dig a trench, bury it?
Yes, sir. That's code requirement. It has to be minimum of 18 inches in depth. Sand on both top and bottom. We pull all the permits for that. Yes, sir.
Okay, why don't I stop there and open this up to questions from the members? Mary, questions?
Yeah, I don't see a plan other than just the assessor's map with a square on it, so I don't have any information on dimensions or whether this is a vegetated area, any detail on the platform or anything like that, so I think we're kind of missing some information on this.
Which I could readily make available. I was not aware that was.
Yeah. I'm looking through the application. I noticed that you notified abutters, which actually isn't required for RDA. So you did that in
Yes.
extra effort there. But yes, we need a plan of the property showing exactly where this is located, its height above grade, the type of footings, and whether or not there's impact to dune vegetation. And if there is, then how that's going to be mitigated.
We can get you exact pictures. We have a mat that's a blueprint of what the generator is, and I can get you the dimensions of the stand. Didn't realize that was what was needed today, so I apologize for not having that.
Yeah.
And then to address that, I don't know about the vegetation. I mean, I would have to give you that information by just
Right.
showing you where we're planning on placing the generator.
Well, I just, without that information, I can't make a determination whether or not this should qualify for an RDA or should be a notice of intent. So I guess there's missing information. So I guess that I'll pass it on to the next member, but I'm not prepared to act tonight.
I'll circle back, Mary, too, after with everyone. TJ, comments or questions for Nick? on
No more than Mary just brought up, no.
this? Okay, thank you, TJ. Woody, any questions on this matter?
Nope, same as TJ and Mary, but otherwise, no.
Okay, Brad, questions?
I'm also looking for more detail, but thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mick, questions?
Yeah, I agree with the rest of the members that we just need more info and a detailed plan. So,
Diane, questions for Nick?
No, my note only had just the relation to where the liquid propane tanks are gonna be in relation to the generator. So
Right.
how long, like the distance between?
Okay. So Nick, basically the feedback is this. Correct me if I'm wrong, you're proposing to use diamond piers as your base. You're proposing a 2-foot aluminum base that meets manufacturer's specifications.
Correct.
Right.
And I guess the question is, what vegetation is going to be displaced and what is the plan to mitigate that? That's usually.
I don't think there would be much disturbance to the vegetation with those diamond pair systems. I mean, there's not much vegetation in the area we plan on placing it. Apologies for you guys having an insufficient amount of stuff that was proposed to you. We'll get that over to you, but you know, you're talking about 4 legs that are 3 inches to 4 inches in diameter, sitting on a diamond pair system, and it's just you know, I'm not an expert on vegetation, but there's not much vegetation. It's mostly sand in the area. So you could probably place the 4 feet down and miss anything and just be in sand. if
So
that
I think,
helps.
I think the points, Nick, that we're trying to convey is, one, having the location of the propane tank that you're going to be tying into. the
It's
path-
existing. It's where the existing propane tanks are. They're up against the side of the house.
And Nick, let me finish my question to you, and then you can respond. The distance and pathway of the trench that you're proposing to the generator, and then the actual specific location of the generator. That's typically the minimum we require to look at this as a determination. But it does require a little bit of work. The alternative is you're going to wind up filing a complete notice of intent, which is a little more of a complex process. What typically would happen is you'd have a site plan. It would locate the generator proposed location. It would locate existing propane tanks, and then it would show the pathway of the piping with the appropriate pitches. If it's all sandy area, but looking at this picture, it looks pretty heavily vegetated from this picture. We would have to consider what mitigation you would need to do. It could simply be removing the grass, the beach grass that's there now, putting it aside, replanting it after the fact. But the consensus of the board is more information is needed before we can take any further action on this.
Understandable.
Okay.
And thank you, sir, for saying that. And again, my apologies. I believed I did at the point in time when I initiated this, because this was initiated by us. We did bring this to the town's knowledge. We did ask first if there was a problem with the existing propane tanks, which we were told there was not. So my apologies. If I understood that this information was a little more needed at this time, then I would have that available. So again, I'll make sure that doesn't occur the second time.
Yeah, welcome to a barrier island, John. It just
Yeah.
what you
I've
might be
been
doing.
multiple times to the town to
Yeah.
ask, so I'm not putting fingers anywhere. I'm just looking for knowledge so that I have a customer that's very interested in wanting a generator. So I want to make sure, you know, I meet his needs and also keep him informed. So I have no problem with putting a plot plan together with corresponding pictures with details of the specifications and size of the generator and so forth. Does that sound correct in what you're looking for?
Let me do this. I'm going to circle back to Mary. Mary, I gave a kind of a broad brush overview.
Yes, thank you, Bob, and I agree with everything you said. You know, my only additional point would be that since this is in a flood zone, you'll need to check to see whether or not it needs to be elevated above the flood zone, in which case you need a topographic survey to determine what the ground elevation is at the location that you want to put it, so that you can make sure that you're above that. And I also suggest when you do put a plan together, that you run it by Sean, and he has an opportunity to look at it and advise you as to whether or not the impacts are likely to be significant enough to warrant filing a notice of intent. So we don't cause you to keep circling around and not moving forward.
So if I can restate what you said, basically put together what I believe is what you're asking for and run it by Sean before we go any further.
That would make sense before you come back.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you might want to contact a surveyor or a professional engineer to get that data.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant on this, TJ? Any additional info you think we need?
Nope, all set.
Thank you. Woody, how about yourself? Any additional info?
Just because it was said but hasn't been said at the end, where the ditches are going for
Oh, sorry.
to tie everything in.
Okay.
Sure, that's on the plan.
Woody, do you want me to put the pictures back on?
No, I'm
Well,
good.
no, we're good, Sean, at this point. I'm just seeing if there's any further information that a member may require. Woody, anything else?
No, thank you, Bob.
Okay, Brad, how about yourself? Any further information?
All good, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Mick, any further information you deem
Uh,
necessary?
Nothing at this time. No, I'm all set. Thanks.
Thank you, Mick. Diane, how about yourself?
No, thank you.
Okay, and I have no questions, so guys, work with Sean. And basically, you have an issue of, you need to know your base flood elevation, and then per the electrical code, as I recall, you need to be 2 feet above base flood elevation. So hence why it gets a little more complex when you're out here on a barrier island in a
Right.
floodplain. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you for your
much.
time, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Bye.
you. Okay, next matter, public hearing, DEP file number 050-1422, 10 Sixth Street. The work construct and raise single-family dwelling onto pile-supported foundation and other site improvements. Is the applicant present?
Yeah, I think he started
Good evening,
sharing
Mr.
his
Chairman. Matt Steinau from Millennium Engineering.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Can you get going on your presentation, Matt? And
Absolutely.
thank you.
So if everybody can see the screen, I just shared mine. This is an existing single-family home constructed on number 10 Sixth Street. And the applicant tonight would like to propose to demolish the existing single-family home, which is represented here on the left side of the screen, and to construct a new single-family home, which is represented here on the right-hand side. Millennium Engineering went out and conducted an on-ground survey to produce the plan that you have before you tonight. And you can see the areas that are in green on the left-hand side are the areas that are designated as vegetated areas on the site currently. And there is a shaded pattern here you can see that's identified as the proposed vegetated impact area. This is where the new structure will sit over the existing vegetation. So that's, you can see is identified here as 833 square feet. We tried to keep it in the general area of the existing home and over some of these areas that are not currently vegetated. We have some brick, pervious brick pavers that are sitting on the ground here. And I'm going to switch screens here real quick just to give the commission a little bit better idea of what the site looks like. If I can get the site photos up. And everybody can see the new photos.
Yes.
So the structure here on the left, to the left of this white car is the structure that's in question. So that's gonna be the one that's coming out, and you can see on the side of the house here, there's a little stand-up shower. There's some pavers in that area there underneath the shower. There's a walkway here in front of the home that's also pervious pavers. And then as I kind of go around the structure, you can see a sandy gravel driveway. We have a neighbor with a good relationship with us, and they're utilizing the same driveway to park against their property on the side. Areas along the side of the property where there is, sparse vegetation in some areas, sandy areas, and sporadic vegetation with a few shrubs and minor trees around. But for the most part, the site is vegetated, and the back of the property looks a lot consistently like this with sporadic areas where there's some sand areas, but mostly vegetated. And that's kind of what we show. So this area here, is the area where my survey instrument is that one sand area that's kind of to the back left as shown on the plan. And that's essentially the footprint is going to be encompassing that sand area there. And then you can see going down the side here, there's again areas where there's sporadic sand and vegetation kind of mixed in. It's all low growing ground vegetation, very few shrubs, with the exception of one over here near the back paper street that's on the property. As you come around to the side of the house, there's sandy areas here where the people have occupied and sat out and had their little fire pit and utilized this as yard area. So there's some sand areas there that aren't vegetated. And then as you come back and looking in the back of the property, there is an existing air condition / heater all-in-one system that's attached to the back of the building here. In the back of the property, it's not obvious when you're out on site looking at it, but where these utility poles, they run down a paper street that runs along the back of our property. So we are not proposing to go anywhere near that there. This is all going to remain untouched in the back. And then you can see some additional shrubs and vegetation here along the property line as well and beyond the right of way. As I come back around this rear, this is looking down the front of the property towards the driveway. And you can see the stairs on the front and kind of a three-season porch here that's elevated where the rest of the structure is all the way down to the ground on a foundation with a side entry. I think that pretty much covers the photo. So I'll go back to the plan. And so that's that sandy area I was talking about where my survey instrument is set up in here. And then the side sandy area is over in here. Where they have the fire pit is on this side over here. So we're proposing to remove the pervious pavers. We're proposing to remove the structure in full foundation, and the new structure will be placed in the same general location, but it'll be on piles. It'll be up in the air, and you'll notice this is a little bit of an odd shaped building. I mentioned that to the homeowner and to the architect involved because it appeared that they were looking to design this to keep it out of the flood zone. And I informed them that they didn't necessarily need to do that. It just needed to be above flood zone, but they really felt strongly they wanted to keep it out of the flood zone. They wanted to have, not a standard square shaped building. They wanted to have something a little more modern and unique. And so they've specifically designed it to have this angle in it to keep it out of the flood zone, but also to kind of give it a more modern look. But having said that, the flood zone here is elevation AE 13. And this is a static flood zone, not a wave action. And we have the lowest horizontal support beams at elevation 17.4. So even if we were to be in that flood zone, we are significantly above the flood zone and in compliance with any of those potential requirements if we had been in the flood zone. As part of this, I've identified that we are proposing to impact approximately 833 square feet of dune grass or beach heather, low-lying ground cover. And we've show that here in our table. And then we have proposed American dune grass mitigation 844. So it's essentially a 1-to-1. And those are the areas identified on the right-hand side of the plan here that are in the darker green areas that totals up to 844 square feet. So we've put back everything that we've damaged, a hair over that, and we are maintaining the existing driveway area for our current parking situation with us and the neighbors. And as you can see on sheet 2, I've provided a profile of the home. I've identified that the existing high contour under the structure is currently 15.2, and the lowest horizontal structure is at 17.4. So we're 2.2 feet above the high contour, and the majority of the structure is actually even further above the grade because the grade's kind of dropping away as it goes back towards the rear of the property. We provided details here for both installation of utilities, new utilities, although the intent is to connect to the existing utilities if when during construction they're excavated, found not to be damaged and of sufficient size, they'll just extend them and tie them into the new building. However, we've given them appropriate details here if necessary to go back out to the road and make new connections if they're deemed not to be of substantial or sufficient size. We have a detail here for orange construction barricade fencing. On sheet 1, you'll notice that we do have a CF line here, construction fence line, to go around the property or go around the proposed building essentially, and to keep heavy equipment and personnel off of the vegetation that's out there during construction, making sure there's no staging or placing of materials outside of that area to further impact the dune grass. I believe there's actually a note on here. Oh, I don't have the note on here. I usually do. Well, oh no, I do down here. We have a note here that says that staging shall occur in the driveway of any dumpsters and building materials, and absolutely no staging or storage of materials shall be permitted within any vegetated areas. So it's very clear that the intent here is for all work to take place within that construction fencing barricade and to be staged within the driveway that exists currently today. Pretty straightforward home replacement project. This was submitted to DEP. And we've received a DEP file number. There are no comments currently on their website. But other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission has.
Okay. Matt, if you could go back to the site plan, in Zoom, yeah, right there, zoom up on that. So the, Zone X and the AE, what is the boundary on that? I see the notation. How far does, Zone X go? Does that encapsulate most of the house?
No, so yeah, I'm sorry. So the Zone X is essentially the entire house. The corner of the structure as it's laid out might strike that line just ever so slightly right there. But
Okay,
essentially it was designed to run along the face of that building.
okay, so the structure is proposed primarily in a Zone X.
Oh,
Correct.
Okay. All right, why don't I hold there and open this up to questions from the members? Mary, questions for Matt on this project?
Yes, I had an opportunity to swing by and take a look at this afternoon, so that was helpful. I'm assuming the existing, I think it's cinder block foundation is being removed, and is there a basement that needs to be backfilled as well?
It's essentially a crawl space at grade. If I can go back to the photos, it might make it a little clearer. You can see on the back side of the structure, we'll get to that one there. So, well, it's a little hard to see, but you can see there's windows here. There's a cinder
Yep.
block foundation here. And, you know, the distance from here to here would indicate that the floor of that inside area there, if it were below grade, we're talking, you know, 12 to 24 inches. It's sitting essentially at grade.
Okay, so you probably will need some backfill of some sand, so we would condition that to be compatible sand for to reestablish grade.
I would think that should be a standard condition, even with a slab at grade, because
Yeah,
even with a
yeah.
slab, you're removing footings and stuff. So there's going to be some depression that will need to be filled.
Right, just getting at some idea of how much would be needed there. And then the other thing I noted was that some of the areas that are showing on your plan as unvegetated are actually vegetated, or at least slightly. And so I think your mitigation is a little under what's needed in this case. And the front of the house actually has shrubs, and those are not shown. And there's some to the right of the existing house near the stairs. There's also some vegetation that's not shown. So I think that there may need to be some beefing up of the mitigation that you're proposing in order to fully accommodate. Yeah, there's vegetation, there's shrubs that obviously have to be removed there. And then to the right of the house, near where the image you just showed, and in front by the fire pit, there's vegetation there too. It's not completely unvegetated. So that would be my first comment, is that I think that we need additional mitigation. And the second is just that there's also your construction fencing is going within areas that are presently vegetated according to your plan. So there will be a fair amount of temporary impact, at least temporary impact, and no opportunity for any unvegetated areas around the back of the building for access or anything like that. So that's why I'm suggesting that your vegetation impacts are significantly greater long-term than what is shown here. So I think that the mitigation needs to reflect that. But other than that,
We could definitely.
Yeah, the filings seem to be, in my mind, pretty complete. I like that you included the profile. We have the foundation plan and above the flood zone. So it ticks a lot of the boxes that we like to see.
So Matt, I think, typically most projects that are presented, it's usually a 1.5 to 1 on the mitigation. And part of that is when you call for a certificate of compliance, if you have a 70 or 80% success rate, you've equaled the 1-to-1, the minimum requirement that you ought to have. So Mary, I think that's what you're hinting at, is bump that up from, it's almost 1-for-1, bump of the mitigation up to 1.5 to 1.
Yes, and also just provide there's got to be some access around the building for the homeowner. So
Right.
I don't think we can count mitigation around the entire building.
Okay, Mary, I'll circle back after
Thank
we've
you.
heard other questions. TJ, questions on this matter for Matt?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you, TJ. Woody, questions for Matt on this matter?
No questions, Bob. He's very informative. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Woody. Brad, questions?
All good, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Mick, questions for Matt on this matter?
Yeah, no, piggybacking on Mary, which I commonly do. Just
We all
my,
do. We
the
all
only
do.
concern was the compensation for vegetation that's going to be disrupted or temporarily disrupted or destroyed during construction activity. And some of these revegetation areas might be part of that. And I think especially in the front, I guess if you scroll down a little bit, this vegetation area to the, or revegetation area to the right, excuse me, to the left, seems to be partially vegetated at this point. So again, questioning whether it's a 1-for-1 or, some of the areas that are proposed for revegetation are currently like partially vegetated. So again, just to kind of revisit that number of square footage and for vegetated area versus vegetated lost. I guess, yeah, that is, that's my concern, and have a more descriptive, what is the area of like active construction and what vegetation in the active construction area needs to be replaced.
Okay, anything else, Mick?
Oh, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Diane, question?
Nope, Mick and Mary covered it. Thank you.
Okay, so Matt, one, I like having the construction fencing, kind of keeps everybody out of trouble. It looks like it's what, about a 10-foot buffer around the work area, or an 8-foot buffer as an offset?
Yeah, it's approximately a 10-foot buffer, yeah.
Okay. So I think Mick's question is, there's going to be a disturbance in that area of some sort, but we don't have a mitigation plan to restore that. Mary, let me ask you a question. We could condition, if the applicant considered increasing the mitigation square footage, we could condition too that prior to the certificate of compliance, the agent would do a site visit, certainly, and determine whether any additional planting in the proposed construction area, if it all recovered, great, but if it didn't. So just throwing that out there. Mary, I'm going to circle back to you for follow-up comment.
Yeah, no, I agree with you and Mick that the temporary everything inside the construction fence is likely to be altered, and that should be, you can put it in a lighter green or something and call it temporary impact to be mitigated, but we should have a good idea of how much vegetation is out there now versus what we are going to be looking for following completion of constructions, and exactly where that's occurring. So there's a way to be able to say whether or not it was successful. So some of it can be conditioned, but some of it can't. And yeah, so all that area, you can see there is some vegetation, and so maybe you count a percentage of it or something creative, but right now I just think we need more planting.
So Mary, do you want like
Matt, please,
like a
wait till you're recognized by the chair. Mary, what I would suggest is that it would seem a site visit might be beneficial on this.
Yeah, like I said, I've been out there and I looked at those areas,
Okay.
so I'm comfortable. I mean, me personally, I don't feel a need to get back out there, but other
Okay.
members might want to do that. And I think that we need more information, so probably a continuance would be in order.
Matt, you want to ask Mary some questions specifically, or what additional information? Do you have any questions?
No, I think I know specifically what Mary's looking for. I just wanted to point out that I recognize what she's saying about how some of the areas have a little bit more vegetation than maybe the plan shows. Specifically in this photo, and this is why I wanted to bring it up, is it's difficult for a survey crew to outline,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, a single sprig here, single sprig there. And so although we show the bulk of the line going around the predominant vegetation, we don't pick up these little tiny spots. I'm also, willing, and I think the applicant is willing to concede that there are plenty of areas throughout the entire site where there's sporadic vegetation
Yeah.
that we can't identify on a plan in such small scale, but a condition that, some of this be vegetated that throughout the entire site. Some of these areas get vegetated would far offset any of the little differences in the areas that we are identifying.
Yeah.
So a condition of, maybe the entire site outside of all construction areas shall be vegetated. And we fill in all these areas with either beach heather or with dune grass or something like that. It's just very difficult to quantify when you're talking about spot areas with minimal vegetation, whereas right next to it, you have a highly vegetated area. How do you break out these
Yeah,
little
we
tiny
have those,
sand
I mean,
areas?
we have those routinely and, Mr. Hughes, who you know well, is providing that on all of the plans that he submits. So we just need to make the math work. And as long as you've got, a acceptable
Transect.
measure of impact and 1.5 times that for mitigation, then you should be in good shape with that requirement. So how you choose to present that, it will be up to you guys.
Okay, I'm gonna, Mary, anything else before we move on to the other members?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Mary. TJ, any follow-up questions for Matt on this?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Woody, any follow-up questions?
No, thank you, Bob.
Okay, Brad, any questions for Matt?
No, I think, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mick, how about yourself? Any questions for Matt?
I am good at this time. Thank you.
Diane, any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, I have none, and I see one raised hand. Steve, hang on one second. Sean, are there any other raised hands besides my friend Steve Manchin?
No, just Steve.
Okay, Steve, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Steve Manchin on 14th Street. I've been admiring the pictures of the fire pit, which is displayed under existing conditions. My question concerns the fire pit. I know that the fire department doesn't allow burning, fires on Plum Island, including fire pits. And I don't know whether the Conservation Commission has anything to say about a fire pit. But if it does, I'm hoping it will be make clear in its conditions that a fire pit is not to be allowed on Plum Island. And that's my comment and question. Thank you.
Okay, Steve. Yeah, Steve, we operate under the premise of the local wetland bylaw and the WPA. That's the extent of our jurisdiction. But I hear what you're saying. Okay, any other questions? Matt, any questions for the commission?
Not at this time. I think I have a good general idea of the feel of the commission, what they're looking to see on here. We'll go back and make some edits to the plan, and we will resubmit and be prepared at the next meeting to provide you some additional detail about the vegetation, which I think was the main focus of what the commission brought up.
Yeah, I think it's the math more than anything else. So,
Excuse me?
yes.
Hello.
Oh,
I
we have
just wanted to make a comment. I'm sorry. I'm not used to doing this. As an abutter, I know that they did an extensive vegetation.
Could you do me a favor, just
yes.
identify
sorry.
yourself and your address, but just for the record, thank you.
I'm at 12 6th Street and I'm Robin Gursky. But they did do an extensive vegetation because there were little pink flags even on my property. So I was wondering what became of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good question.
Yeah, somebody did a very extensive look at what was growing in the area because I had pink flags on my property. They were in the they were in the right of way.
Delineation? Is that the delineation?
No, they were pink.
Not
no,
recently, but
they were pink flags that were identifying vegetation on different areas. Yeah.
I'd have to honestly, I'd have to meet you out on site to see specifically what the pink flags you were talking about. Our survey crew, when they're there, they'll use the flags to identify iron rods or
Oh, I
property
know that.
markers, things like that.
I've had my property surveyed. I know exactly how it works, but there were pink flags that no longer exist, but they were identifying all the vegetation in the area around that, including along the side of it's a pork chop lot. So it's a very difficult shape of a lot. And they were in my property as well and identifying all kinds of vegetation. So I'm just curious as to what happened to that. I don't see it in the photos that were presented. I don't see anything that indicates any of that.
Truthfully, we don't know what these pink flags are. My crew didn't hang any flags. You can see this is the photos they took the day they were there, and there were no flags in any of them. So I don't know if somebody else came by at a later date and did some other form of delineation or review, but it wasn't related to this.
Okay. Well, somebody did, so somebody knows what's growing out there.
Any other questions?
Mary has her hand raised.
No, I understand that. I just want to finish with the neighbor. Do you have any other questions?
No, I'm just, I just wanted to see the layout because it will affect me, obviously. How tall is this house gonna be?
So on
The
sheet
elevation?
sheet 2 of the plan set, we have an elevation here, which shows that the existing mean average grade, so the average grade, not the high contour, is about 14, just about 14. And then the proposed structure up from that there is 33 feet 1 inches. So
Okay.
it's about 4 feet lower than the zoning maximum.
Okay, it's very pretty.
That's the peak.
Okay.
Okay, Mary, I see questions, Mary.
Oh, just to circle back to Steve Mangin's earlier comment about the fire pit. That fire pit looks to be off the property, so I would imagine it will be replaced. You can see from the photos, it's on the other lot, yeah.
No, that's
Lot
on,
line comes very
It's
close
on the
to
property.
it's on the property.
It
You can
looks
see
like
the
it.
stairs here,
Yeah.
Mary?
Yeah,
See those stairs, and it's right here. So if you look on the site plan, these are those stairs
oh,
right here.
those
So
stairs,
it's
gotcha, okay, yep,
sitting right here.
looking at it backward, yep, okay.
You're
Never
looking at
mind.
these stairs, yeah.
Never that one. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Any other members of the public have a question? Okay, hearing none. Matt, I'm anticipating that the applicant's going to request a continuance of the public hearing to our May 7th meeting.
We are.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to continue this public hearing to May 7th?
So moved.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, roll call vote, all in favor? Mary,
Yes,
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes,
Brad,
Aye.
Mick.
Aye.
Diane,
yes.
and Bob Connors. Okay, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, continue public hearing, DEP file number 0501423, 17 Main Street, Lot 4, for work to construct a two-family dwelling with a septic system, utilities, and associated site work. Team, as I recall at our last meeting, this was presented and we did a site visit following that meeting. And is the applicant here?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, George Samboris, Atlantic Engineering.
Hey, good evening, George.
How are
Okay,
you?
George, why don't I do this? Why don't I open this up to questions? Mary, it seems that we had the presentation at our last meeting, and it was really taking a site visit on the impact. So why don't I start with you if you have any questions for George?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Okay. TJ, any questions for George?
I do not.
Woody, any questions for George?
no, I do not, thank you.
Brad, any questions for George?
I do not.
Mick, how about yourself?
Other question, I know, George, thank you for taking the time to meet Woody and I out there. And we had talked about putting either some flagging up or something to mark your timber cutting line, like which trees you're going to remove. I don't know if you've done that yet.
It was done on the plan. It's It's identified on the plan, and we moved the septic chambers out of the buffer zone as you had suggested.
Yeah, that was good. Great. Yeah, I just, George and I talked about a part of the tight tanks of the septic system were within the 100-foot buffer. I suggested just shifting those out of the 100-foot buffer, so we didn't need to condition those tight tanks with, periodic testing or whatnot. Other question, I was looking at the stormwater plan, George, and it was just, excuse me, one thing I noticed in the during construction, you had described that the spoils are going to be stored outside of the wetland zone. So it doesn't really define, is that outside the 50-foot buffer, 100-foot buffer? I think you just might need to add a little bit of language to that just satisfies it. We're going to store any excavation soils outside of the 100-foot buffer. So that I think it's probably assumed, but it just make the statement within the stormwater control plan.
And that's what the intent is, yes.
Yeah, I think maybe just to add that outside the 100-foot buffer would satisfy us. And I think all the other erosion control, and the spoils, storage and maintenance seems to be in order. So it was just those two things that I noticed. But other than that, yeah, thank you for meeting us out there.
Mick, let me ask you a question. If we included that as a special condition, that any construction spoils has to be outside of the resource area, whether that's buffer, or wetland. Would that suffice?
I think that would suffice rather than having George go back in and change the language on the stormwater plan. I'd be fine with that.
Okay, Mary, what are your thoughts on that?
That's fine with me.
Okay. All right, moving on. Diane, questions for George?
No, I missed the site visit, so I will defer, but I did look at the plan.
Okay.
Look good.
Brad, did I skip over you inadvertently?
That's quite all right, Mr. Chair. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. I actually was able to get out to the site visit, but and Mick and Woody were still there. I was actually amazed, George, at a lot of the dead timber you have on that lot. I mean, there's a few widowmakers there, man, that we could use some pruning.
There are quite a few.
Yeah, I agree.
right.
Any logging that you do in that area, George, is going to be probably an improvement.
Sean, any questions or any questions on this one you have for George?
No, I think everything looks good. Keep up the good work.
Okay. Are there any raised hands from the public at this time? Okay. All right. Do any members have a request for additional information or plan amendment or adding additional content to the plan set?
No,
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
so moved.
Second,
Okay, roll call, all in favor. Mary,
Yes.
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes.
Brad,
Aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Special conditions outside of having no construction spoils, completely outside the resource area, including buffers. Is there anything else, Mary, that you want us to entertain?
Was there something Mick mentioned about moving the tight tank?
Yes, it was partially within the 100-foot buffer, and I think George and I talked about just shifting it outside the 100-foot buffer. And I think George, you said your revised plans show that.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. George, status of Board of Health approval. Where are you at on that?
They have not yet been submitted. The plans are pretty much done. They'll probably be submitted sometime next week. All the perks have done, the designs have done. So it's just really submitting the septic designs for approval.
Technically, all, oh,
Go ahead, Mary. Yeah, certainly.
sorry. technically all other local approvals that are required are supposed to have been submitted at the time of filing, or at least during the hearing process, so, I don't know if we anticipate any problems with the Board of Health, but that's the Wetland Protection Act regulations are all of their local approvals be submitted at the time of filing.
I mean, the tank itself is well on, the field is almost 300 feet from the edge of the wetland area. So the only thing that's,
It's not likely to affect us in any
Yeah,
way.
it's outside of our
No.
jurisdiction. isn't it?
matter of fact, even the pipe work is outside the 100-foot buffer.
Yep,
Okay,
okay, thank you.
no, good
Clarification.
question. And my bad, usually I ask that question before we move on to closing the public hearing, so. Okay, any other questions? Any other special conditions? TJ, anything you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Woody, how about yourself?
No, it's good.
Okay, Brad,
All good, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mick,
No other questions. Thank you. Mr. George.
okay, Diane,
No,
and Bob Connors has none. All right, I'll entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions for 19, whoops, excuse me, getting ahead of myself here. For 17 Main Street, Lot 4, with our usual conditions and one special condition of including a note on the storage of construction spoils outside of all resource areas.
So moved.
Do you have a second? Okay, roll call vote, all in favor, Mary?
Yes, I would just ask if Sean could provide us with a copy of the order before it's issued so that we could have a
Review.
chance to take a look at it. And we
Will
can
do.
use the old order since this is a repeat filing, the old order of conditions will be a good reference.
Thank you, Mary. Woody,
Yes,
TJ,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Okay, next matter, continue public hearing, DEP file number 0501425, 19 Independence Way West for work to construct a new dwelling with associated site work. Tom Hughes, good evening.
Good evening. Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting here on behalf of Steve Mateos. At the last hearing, we went through the project and the procedures by which we'll add sand into the dune and add sand as we remove that wall along the property line. Talked a bit about the invasive removal protocol and our need to raise skirting up above 13 that we needed to correct on the plans. Had a site visit, and also more detail was asked for on landscape. So we've provided some materials today. I just wanted to run through that stuff quickly, show you where I was going with the landscape plan, just to kind of get some feedback, in particular from Mary, because she was the one who raised that comment. I also understand that there was confusion on the meeting date with the neighbor, and she wasn't at the last hearing, and she may want to ask some questions or have some comments on the project. And then we also got some DEP comments that were pretty, some of them were a little bit odd, talking about coastal bank, and by definition, a coastal dune doesn't have a coastal bank. The one thing they did focus a little bit more on was the invasive plan and the request for a landscape plan. So responding to the commission's comments on that were also something that will address the DEP comments. I did respond to the DEP comments, but indicated I would be sending additional information on that landscape element. So anyway, let me just quickly share my screen. The other thing I'll note is that I did double check, and the cleanup was closed out with DEP. So that's all set as well. All right, so I'm gonna share my
I,
screen.
I can confirm that. I've seen the, what he sent.
So, sorry, well, I'll note that while I don't have this in the record, but this is, the sand we bring in for the, work, all of the sand brought onto Plum Island should, comply with the beach management plan gradation. So this is one of the things I'm working on to make it clearer for when we come in for a certificate of compliance, what should be vegetated. So this graphic makes it much clearer that basically everything outside the footprint of the house, the driveways, walkways, is going to be vegetated when we're done. And, you know, the client really doesn't want or really need any areas to kind of recreate outside. Everything's kind of built in. There's a proposed deck that's part of the structure. So they feel that they're fine as far as that goes. What I plan on doing is marking this up. I see kind of a couple distinct areas. There's an area, and I'll show you some photographs of it we saw during the site visit in here that is largely native plants with some small bittersweet kind of growing up. In that area, all we're really doing is removing the bittersweet. There's no real need to do any significant plantings there. We're just going to remove the bittersweet. In this area, there are some trees, and then there's a lot of invasives kind of growing under. There's also, I think, a lilac in there too. But our intent is just to remove the invasives, but leave the native there. And then in this area that borders the property line, with the neighbor at 57 Sunset, it's kind of a hodgepodge of invasives. There's multiflora, there's bittersweet, honeysuckle, but there's also a bunch of cherries, a few different species of cherry. There's some other natives that are growing in there. So in this area, it's tough to quantify the number of plants that will have to go back in because the cherry saplings are fairly dense in there. And when we remove the invasives, there's likely going to be plants 3 to 4 feet on center that remain, but we would be filling in any gaps. So I do plan on that area of just specifying based on a density for that vegetated area, kind of the rough count of live native plants that should be present when we're done. And if we're short of that, we would plant. And I am going to call for a few plantings down in this area. You know, during the site visit, I mean, I think we all saw this. You guys saw that during the, you know, during the last hearing. This is the area where that wall will come out of the dune slope, the corner that's on the neighbor's property, the wing wall back, and the stairs right there. And as this is removed section by section, we'll have clean compatible sand that will be essentially placed immediately upon that removal of that wall, in addition to backfilling the depression from the removal of the foundation and the contaminated soil that was done when the town owned the property. So again, you can see the depression. You can see an old monitoring well there. I believe that's actually groundwater in that depression. I've seen it present on a number of different site visits. They dug down pretty deep. So again, there's that depression, but this is the area where we have invasives and natives growing kind of commingled. Again, this area here, same thing. So we've got some honeysuckle growing here in and amongst and next to some, so I think those are some cherries right there. And again, it's just kind of a rat's nest mix of natives and invasives in there. And we'll be weeding out and removing the invasives. I'll be marking them. Most removal will be pulled except when they're so commingled, in which case there'll be a very targeted application of herbicide, and it'll be done by somebody who's licensed to do the work and knowledgeable with invasives, or with somebody like me monitoring the work to make sure that what they're doing is in line with the protocol. So again, this is that same area kind of continuing towards Sunset. And then we have this area that's kind of a combination. There's some sedges in here. There's overgrown lawn from days gone by. But overall, it's a pretty nicely vegetated area in here up near Sunset. But you've got little growths of bittersweet trying to grow in and amongst these natives. And so those will be removed. We're probably going to put some plants back in here, but the native plants that are there provide plenty of cover, and the ground cover is pretty much 100%. And then along here, we do have the driveway will be coming in here, and then on the other side. And the intent right now is to save these trees, have the driveways run on either side. But there are invasives growing under there, under those trees. And you can kind of see again, it's just a mess of plants, and so they're sorting them out and getting them out, and then determining whether the natives that are there are so damaged that it's better off just to replace them, rather than, removing the plants that have been using them as a trellis and then finding that what you have left is struggling to survive. So with that, I just wanted to kind of give you guys that update, and then see if you have any questions or feedback. If you want, I can pull up the profile views that we submitted showing that the skirting's been raised up to 13, but we've submitted those. And then I guess what I would want to do is turn it over to the commission, and then hear from abutters, and then look to continue, so I can just write up a more comprehensive response to any issues from tonight, and address the issues from DEP.
All right, thank you, Tom. Let me open this up to questions from the members first and then to the public. Mary, questions for Tom at this time?
A couple of comments. Yeah, I would like to see your written responses to DEP's comments. I didn't see on the plan construction fence or some kind of limit of work during construction to prevent inadvertent impacts to vegetated areas.
That is there. That's on the project plan. What I just pulled up was more a graphic for.
Right. Okay,
yeah.
if it is on the.
It is on there. I can pull that up.
I see limit of work, but I don't see what it is being used to establish the limit of work.
Right. That's an orange construction fence.
Okay.
And it
great.
should be labeled on there if it's not.
I didn't see
I'll
that.
have done.
I think that it would be prudent to have you or an environmental monitor present during the dune restoration activities.
Yes. No, that I think that is in my narrative, but the intent is that I would be present for the removal of the wall and the
I'm looking down the road to special conditions that we want to include.
Absolutely,
in
yeah,
our
and we
conditions.
would, right,
And then,
no, we would.
and then
we would
monitoring
accept
of any of the final landscape plan for 2 growing seasons. So those are, I'm just thinking ahead to potential special conditions for this one.
Yeah, we would welcome those conditions.
Okay. Mary, anything else?
That's all I have for now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mary. TJ, any questions for Tom on this project?
No questions. Did the site walk, and you cleaning the cleaning up of this property. I think is very needed. It's in tough shape, so it's a good project.
Yeah, this has been one of those orphaned, somewhat abandoned homes for probably more than a decade or two, which is too bad, but okay, thank you, TJ. Woody, any questions on this matter for Tom?
No questions. Thank you, Tom, and thank you both.
Okay, thank you, Woody. Brad, any questions for Tom on this?
No, just echoed TJ's comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Brad, thank you. Mick, how about yourself?
Yeah, having walked the site, with Woody and others were there, and Tom, appreciate your time out there. I do agree kind of with the westernmost or the closest to Sunset. That driveway area is really just kind of a tangled mess, and not to try to, I don't think a concerted effort to try to save indigenous plants in that area is really worth the effort, where it's so, you rip one out, you're going to rip 10 out, and really just to create the driveway and then create replanting areas. And I think you've shown that on your plan. So I think that's good. And again, with the rest of the committee, I think it's, it's property improvement really from its existing condition. In Just general practices, Tom. I don't know what's on the docket for your work or for the Mateos work, but I would remove those existing monitoring wells as soon as possible. And you might even be able to pull them by hand. It's just general, it's just an opportunity for people to pour stuff down those wells and impact groundwater, things like that. They're just, not that it might happen here, but usually, when a site is closed under DEP, the first thing you do is close those monitoring wells in place. So that's something I would do. Either cut them at grade and cap them, fill them. You can, or just pull them. That would be a suggestion.
Yeah, no, it's a shame the LSP didn't really do that, but
Yeah, I mean, that's usually like part of the closure plan is, in order to, finalize the closure, you have to pull existing monitoring wells and close them in place.
yeah, I'll probably be going by to field verify when I do my landscape updates. So
Yeah, I
when
mean,
we do that, I'll
when we-
probably see if I can yank them myself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we kind of looked at it and said they're screened above grade, so I mean they're not
Yeah.
even really viable groundwater monitoring wells anyway. So
Right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Diane, any questions for Tom on this matter?
No.
Okay, so Tom, just to do a recap before I open this up for public comment, you're going to finalize the planting submittal. You're going to share with us your responses to DEP, and looking over the horizon, we've discussed a couple of additional special conditions that will likely be incorporated.
Yes, and to give you any, so DEP's comments must include a narrative addressing the dune performance standards. And so my response is see page 4 and 5 of my narrative.
And I saw that.
And then must include profile view. Well, it's like they were attached. So, but we just updated them. So I sent them the updates. So some of them were just kind of funny. And it's almost like, did they get a complete copy of the NOI? I was kind of, but the Coastal Bank and Dune, it tells me it's a relatively new analyst because, there's administrative law decisions on it, but it's also very clear in the definition of Coastal Bank that it does not include areas of coastal dune.
Okay, Sean, any questions on this for Tom, or any points you want to raise?
I don't have any questions, but I know the public does.
Okay.
Stephen?
Well, you know what, Julia had sent a communication, and she's in a direct abutter, so I'm going to go with Julia first, and then Steve, I'll follow up with you if that's okay. Hi, Julia, if you're on mute, if you would like to ask some questions or make some comments, just state your name, address, but you're still on mute there you go.
Hello, I'm Julia Yoshida. I'm at 57 Sunset. I do have a few questions. I guess one simple one is, what is the interval time that you plan between the removal of the wall and the installation of the sand?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the protocol is basically we'll be doing it at the same time. So as we remove a section of the wall, we'll remove 4, 5, 6 feet, whatever comes out, and push some sand up against it. There'll be clean sand staged right there. So it'll be, within the same day, the wall and stairs are removed and all the sand is there, and it has a minimum slope of 3 to 1, which is a stable dune slope for sand, especially in a vacuum environment.
Okay. I'm assuming that the people who made the site visit were able to see that there is a large portion of exposed root of the black cherry on the dune.
Yeah, there's a lot of exposed roots there, and the approach is we're going to place sand basically by essentially pushing it in there. So that should help surround those roots and give them some level of protection to the extent they're exposed.
I can't think of anything else particularly at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Steve Manchin.
Once again, thank you, my good friend. Bob, and-
Julia, oh. Sorry, I do have something to mention. While you're here and you weren't here, the previous meeting, we did have email contact, but I just wanted to, while we're here, to notify you that Tom has to, you have to give permission to Tom, and Tom, so, at some point, there has to be or a letter, some contract written that you give permission to Tom.
Yep. I would like to get the information that he just mentioned he has on the planned landscaping, because I did not see that.
Yes, and to follow up with what Sean was saying, to the extent the work goes over the property line, obviously, Julia, we can't do that without your okay, and whether that's just a verbal okay or contractual is going to be between you and Steve Mateos, and we'll let that kind of work out. The landscape plan, I'm going to be beefing that up a little bit, and I'll copy you when I submit that into the commission.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Steve, your turn at the bat.
Once again, thank you, my good friend and chair. A comment that was made about the monitoring well screens being above grade caught my attention. And again, I don't know whether it falls under the purview of the Concom, but have the monitoring wells, which are looking at groundwater quality, has the data from those wells been reviewed and shown that the fuel oil or gasoline contaminants have indeed dissipated, which does occur through time. But I'm wondering whether any of that falls under the purview of the Conservation Commission. Thank you.
It was mentioned earlier, Steve, that the LSP closed out and DEP closed out this matter. Tom, if you want to add commentary to that.
Yeah, if I can, let me share my screen again. I think in my my multitude of PDF documents, I think I actually have that here. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. I have way too many windows open.
Tom, do you have it, or do you want me to pull it up?
Give me a second.
Okay.
That's it right there. So this is the closeout report, and basically they talk about how they went through and monitored the wells and did all this good stuff. 4 wells, 2 down gradient, 2 source area wells, and then they talk about the risk characterization and basically concluded no significant risk exists at the site. So they did go through this process. Steve, I think as you probably know, the cleanup involves, you know, certain levels of reports, and then there's a final report. And this does say that it was audited by, you know, Wayside Cleanup. So it's gone through and checked off all the boxes. Beyond that, it's not really a Wetland Protection Act item, but it is something that folks asked me to look into and make sure.
Sure, and I appreciate that, Tom. May I ask, is that report part of the on the town's website? And one of these people likes to look at the data.
Well, so I pulled this down from the DEP website. DEP has a database, much like they have the Notice of Intent database. So if you go to the easiest way I find it is I go to the DEP Notice of Intent database, and then I click back up to the menu, and then there's a drop down where you can choose a bunch of different search things, and you go to the Wayside Cleanup, and then you can put in an address. In this case, if you just put in Independence, it shows up. And then there's a multitude of reports and documentation, and, you know, I think they even have the bills of lading for the contaminated material and where it went.
Fair enough, and thank you. Though I will say historically, I found getting into the DEP databases to be a little bit cumbersome, but it's on me to take a look at it. And if anything does catch my attention, I'll certainly let our conservation agent know what caught my attention so that he can relay the information to you. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Mick, I see that question.
Yeah, I just, excuse me, am I muted? No, I just want to respond to Steve. I was out there on the site, Mr. Manchin, and I've got a number of years of experience in environmental remediation, and it's not uncommon that the removal of the groundwater monitoring wells is kind of overlooked sometimes. But just looking at the soils there, looking at the exposed water that was in the pit, there's no sign of sheen, there's no odor, there's no staining on the soil. I read the DEP closure report. It's a typical what we call dig and haul, where they pull the remediation soil, they pull the soil out until they get to clean soil. They install the monitoring wells and just make sure there's no return of contaminated groundwater or contamination in the soil. And the LSP closed it out. So yeah, I know I was satisfied with it. Not that I'm an official voice, but it looked like it was done properly with the exception of removing those groundwater monitoring wells.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I appreciate Mick's comments, and my questioning perhaps reflects my prior career in the environmental business for the government.
I
But again,
never
thank you,
would have guessed
Mick
that,
and
Steve.
Chair.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay. All right. Are there any other members from the public that have a question or a raised hand at this time? John,
Nobody has a raised hand.
okay. So, Tom, you're requesting a continuance of the public hearing to our May 7th meeting? Is that your
Yeah.
request?
Yeah, and I think if it's not too presumptuous, if staff could start working on the order in the meantime, just so that we're kind of ready to go after that next hearing, that would be really appreciated. But obviously that's up to staff and to the commission. But with that, I would request a continuance to the next meeting.
I would always think that our conservation agent would welcome a sample draft OOC for his review and redlining by us.
Happy to help out.
Okay. Is there a motion to continue the public hearing to May 7th at the owner's request?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, all in favor? Mary,
Yes.
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes.
Brad,
Aye.
Nick,
All right.
Diane,
yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay,
Thank you.
so next matter is continued public hearing on DEP file number 0501409, 18 Fordham Way, Blue Inn LLC for after the fact approval of work to replace 2 sets of beach access stairs and a beach management plan. Tom, as I recall, and team, as I recall, we were just waiting on the natural heritage letter on the beach management plan submittal. Tom, can you give us an update on this?
Yeah, the Natural Heritage reviewed the documents and sent an email basically saying our original letter applies. So they didn't add any additional conditions. And then they resent the original letter. So they've now responded. So we have attached the sediment grain size analysis from the Town of Newbury Beach Management Plan, which I think originated with the sewer project. But ultimately it's what's supposed to be used on Plum Island. And then we've also attached that natural heritage letter with their conditions to our beach management plan document. So that's all kind of together as one. And then we would anticipate your order of conditions would also include those natural heritage proposed conditions, in its decision. And lastly, I do want to remind the commission, we had a discussion about those the design of the walkovers and a DEP comment on them, where DEP had talked about elevating them up. And we talked about why that actually is more harmful to the resource area, because the stairways are built over an area of stone revetment covered with a veneer of sand. And if we lift them up necessarily to get up to the walkover and to get off the walkover, we have to extend them and make them longer, and we bring them out into more functional resource area. In addition, they're narrow, so and there's no vegetation on that slope, so they're not blocking vegetation, and sand is able to move around, build up under them, on them. My understanding is sand, some years sand covers the stairs, and other years it is washed right down to the rock. So we would ask that just a finding about why it makes sense to have approved it at the, as constructed, as opposed to up in the air and extending it to be a longer structure, would be appreciated. And I'm happy to to help out with drafting that finding if the commission so requests.
Okay, Tom, let me stop you there and open this up to questions. Mary, any further questions for Tom?
I'm just re-reviewing the conditions from Natural Heritage. There was a time of year restriction, April 1st to August 31st, in which work couldn't occur. The property owner has responsibility for protecting piping plovers and must allow monitoring for presence of plovers and turns by a qualified shorebird monitor as determined by the division. And shall allow any nests, scrapes, or unfledged chicks to be protected with symbolic fencing. This is town beach in front of them? Is this
This
their
is private
beach?
property.
It's private.
It's
Yeah.
private beach.
Right,
So
private.
how are they, does this mean that the private property owner is required to monitor for turns and plovers if they're going to be using the property in a way that would impact them during that time of year?
I don't read it that way. What I read as is that if they have a monitor coming by, we have to give them access. And that if we do anything that is an alteration, not just using the beach, right? Like if it's obvious that there's a bird there, we have to take action to protect it. But you kind of have to do that if you know it is there anyway under the Mass Endangered Species Act. You can't harm the birds. That's something that's fairly standard that Natural Heritage started putting on private property for anybody who has sort of these primary dune properties that extend down to the beach. They've been putting that condition on there. I just see that as, saying that, these guys are operating an inn, that they're, cleaning up the beach. They're doing things that are maybe a little bit more aggressive than your average homeowner. And in doing that, they've got a responsibility to protect the shorebirds if they.
But they also have guests using that part of the beach
Right.
during the time of year restrictions. So
Yeah, but I don't think it says they can't use the beach. I think that's not the way I read it. I think it's
it doesn't, and it does. It says the property owner must allow regular monitoring. It doesn't say they must conduct regular monitoring.
Right,
I understand
right.
what you're saying there. It's just I'm not sure how this fits into what we can condition.
Well, I think
Let me jump in here.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
Those are all unconstitutional. You cannot incorporate the use of someone's property in anticipation of a permit. There's private property rights there that, supersede. And I'm involved in litigation all over the country, and we win 100% of the time on these claims. And I'm actually surprised to hear this, that Natural Heritage is starting to do that, because it winds up being protracted litigation, and many times it winds up at the U.S. Supreme Court, and it costs everybody a lot of money, except the property owner. But
I think they've carefully worded this in a way to not outright require it. So
They can
Yeah.
ask, but they can't demand and they can't condition.
that's what it looks like, except if there is somebody that shows up and says there's plovers nesting on your beach, they have to allow measures to protect it.
Right.
Well, not
They
on
don't have to
private
take
property.
it.
Not
Yeah.
on private property.
Well,
No,
that's what that's what this is saying. So I'm not,
yeah, because we're having this issue with a lot of other property owners, and basically monitoring, other than on public property, it is required permission from the property owner, or it's classified as criminal trespass. We're having a problem on the northern part of the beach that the monitors have been erecting symbolic fencing in the property without permission, and they've been ordered to remove it by the town. We had a meeting with the Audubon on CWP that the town was involved in. And this was all pointed out with clarity that you cannot trespass on private property without written permission or certainly permission of the property owner. But it seems to happen anyway. So,
yeah.
but the letter is what it is. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
they're, how
Yeah.
enforceable it is.
And we're in as the applicant, we're in a difficult spot, right? Where we have to apply for the MISA approval through the notice of intent process. We give them a period of time to write a comment letter.
Yeah.
They write one, and their comments and their conditions are required to be put into your orders. So, I think we just have to have some faith that they're going to be reasonably executed as it relates to doing alteration as opposed to use.
That's what I'm wondering, is that this is a permit condition. This is authorization to allow you to do something. It's not being applied to some property owner that hasn't asked for a permit for something.
Right.
So that's where it comes down, though. You can't demand access to private property as a condition of getting a permit.
Yeah, I don't know how this,
Well,
other than it's included in your order, is
Right.
included in your beach management plan now. So it will, our order of conditions will reference your beach management plan.
Yeah, no, exactly. It won't be enforceable. Tom, is that in the Dropbox, Sean? That the
Yes, it is. I'm looking at it now.
Okay.
I mean, most commissions put those conditions right in the order. And I guess I would ask, if you put them right in the order, I wonder if they can be phrased with the following natural heritage during project activities subject to this order, the following activities or the following conditions apply.
Yep.
And that would at least make sure that there was a nexus between the permit and the permission being granted. And I think it is typical that a commission does cut and paste those conditions right into the order. So I think maybe that is something where maybe it's a natural heritage condition, and those go from being bulleted as numbers to being like A through whatever, and there's an introductory paragraph that says that they apply as they relate to project activities regulated by the order. And I think that would make the applicant feel better about it, because then that tells me that if we're doing things under the beach management plan or doing any work related to those walkways, working on them or whatever, then we have to make sure that we're complying with all that. Would that be amenable to the commission, sort of incorporating them in a fashion like that?
Is it now attached to your beach management plan? Is it part of,
Yeah, it's attached to it. So it only applies to the beach management plan when we're doing beach management activities.
It should be
The beach
stapled to your beach management plan and become part of that document.
right, but we also have to reference it in relation to the boardwalk construction, which is what the notice of intent was originally for. It was after the fact notice of intent for boardwalk construction, so. And it's only valid for 5 years.
Right.
Yeah, no, there's a number of Supreme Court cases that I'm actually well aware of. Nolan versus Dolan, where that when you incorporate these type of conditions in order to get a permit, it's just deemed as unconstitutional. But I'm actually going to send it off and get a legal opinion on it. But that's unrelated to the matter before us tonight.
Yeah. In the meantime, I think if we could just incorporate it into the order with that language about it, to the extent, you know, work is being done under the order of conditions, the following conditions apply. And then just put it in there that way so that it's clear it doesn't apply to the, you know, the beach in guest, you know, the guest putting a towel down on the beach. And I mean, I think that's probably fair enough to get us by. And you know, it's a delicate dance sometimes, permit conditions. And
no, Newbury ran into this when DEP issued superseding orders and intervened when property owners got local approval to rebuild their homes after storm damage. And these draconian requirements were then required. And it was amazing when a legal opinion came down that was brought to everyone's attention, the unconstitutional aspect of it all. It disappeared within 24 hours and everyone got their permits. But so, well, listen, any other questions, Mary, on this?
No, other than Sean, if you need some help with the order, I'm happy to help you with that.
Okay, thank you, Mary. TJ,
Thank you, Mary.
any questions on this one?
Nope. Good.
Yeah, thank you. Woody, any questions on this one?
No questions. Thank you, Bob.
Brad, any questions on this one?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Mick, how about yourself? Any questions?
All set. Thank you.
Okay, Diane, any questions on this matter?
Just one, Tom. So are you saying that your client or the owner of the property is accepting the conditions as set forth in natural heritage? Because if we incorporate it into our order of conditions, I'm just concerned if they're going to come back later and
so
complain about it.
their conditions are a decision under the Mass Endangered Species Act, right? And I think our only way of contesting them would be to appeal them. And I think that if they were couched in such a way that it was clear that they applied to activities subject to the order as opposed to the beachgoer and the in-guest and just walking out on the beach, you know, which we all would agree, I think, is exempt from Wetland Protection Act. So therefore, the order wouldn't apply to that. I think we can accept them. And I don't think we have much choice. I think you guys are, you know, the way the regs are worded, we have to give 30 days for Natural Heritage to get their comment letter in, and it is essentially an approval under the Mass Endangered Species Act through the Wetland Protection Act approval. So I guess our only other thing would be to say, don't put them in the order, and then we have to go get our own permit from the endangered species people and go through a long process, which seems ridiculous. So,
well, I don't think we should be wordsmithing it. The document should speak for itself.
Well,
and have it attached.
I also want to add in that it's also a migrating species. So.
No, so the question is this, wouldn't we just typically reference the letter and not the content, but try to qualify it? It's going to be attached to the beach management plan. Document speaks for itself. And if it's deemed to be a problem later on, there's avenues for all parties at that point.
I think if you just make the conditions that say work associated with this order of conditions must comply with the natural heritage conditions attached to the beach management plan.
And I'd agree with that. I thought we were going to start cutting and pasting it into our own order. So that's
you make it, you include it by reference.
Right.
Yeah, it's just fine. But it covers what Tom's trying to do, but you don't have to actually cut and paste it into the document.
Yeah, however you do it. Yeah. Most commissions will just cut and paste it right in without much thought. Yep. Just right in. And I actually appreciate the thought the commission's giving this. It's, you know, it's a delicate thing. I mean, certainly my client, you know, doesn't want to do any harm to plovers or threatened or endangered species. So, you know, in general, we agree with the nature of the conditions to protect the species, but certainly not if it's going to be onerously enforced.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Diane?
Nope.
Okay, Steve, any comments you want to add on?
Sure. Once again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Steve on 14th Street. You know, the storms we've had during the last two spring tides have certainly caused a lot of erosion at the south of the inn at the beach. As you may know, or some of you may know, the observation platform at Lot 1 on the Wildlife Refuge was taken out, or the stairs were taken out during the storm. This happened about 10 or 15 years ago as well, so there is some periodic removal that occurs. With that introduction, did the last couple storms cause any need to implement the beach management plan on your client's property, Tom? And if so, what was done? And then I had one other question.
Not that I'm aware of, but I haven't specifically asked that. And I occasionally look at their beach webcam to just monitor storm conditions, and I didn't see anything. But so honestly, I can't answer that. I think the chairman probably would be aware because he lives right near there.
I walk my dogs down by there, Steve, and there's been no damage to the stairs that have been installed.
Thank you for that. And again, that does point to how the locus of erosion can be very particular and can shift through time, as most of you know already. But the other comment I would have was a word that the chairman just used, and I'm thinking about beach management plan, plovers, and what if plovers show up, or terns, or other migratory species? What does that say about dogs on the beach at the property in question? I don't know whether Blue is a dog-friendly establishment, but are there provisions to think about what to do with dogs on the property of Blue? I'm not talking about other properties up and down the beachfront, but rather this one as it might pertain to a beach management plan.
You
It's
know,
really, I don't have a solution. That's one way to prolong a town meeting, mention dogs.
Yeah, let me just say, when we had a meeting with Audubon under the Coastal Waterbirds program, this was discussed, and the police chief was in attendance. There's no leash law in Newbury. On private property, dogs are allowed to be on the beach because it's private property. On the public section of the beach, which is about 400 feet long from Center Island up, before the hours, I think it's 8 in the morning, and after 5 at night, it could be 8:30 and 5:30 during a particular season. That's what the bylaw says. Dogs are allowed before and after. Sean, didn't you have signs made up when we were talking about this, trying to find a middle ground of how do we protect the birds, respect private property rights? And we were adding signs at all the right-of-ways that if you see symbolic fencing, urging people to put a leash on their dog, even if it's private or not. But it's a suggestion, and it's something that's not enforceable without a leash law. And again, a leash law is not enforceable on private property.
I
Yeah,
guess
so I'll pull up the piping plover sign.
Yeah, I guess to answer Steve's question though, I think if a dog is going down the beach as part of using the beach, and there's not a roped off plover area, and it's not known that there's a plover there, then it's not it's not something that we're going to worry about. I think if you know a plover is there, then I think obviously you're going to take steps to try to do what you can to work with people to try to protect it. And You know, and I think the way I read these conditions is they apply to work that we're doing under the beach management plan, which is strictly about cleaning up, you know, rack and debris and lobster pots and stuff that washes up and covering the rocks when they get exposed with clean, compatible sand. It's not, you know, it's not a wholesale, you know, whether or not they allow dogs. It's not kind of that level of, it's not like the rules of using the beach for in guests. You know, and it is a delicate issue, but who's also to stop, you know, if some neighbor is walking along the intertidal zone with their hunting dog.
You know what, guys, let me stop this dog conversation.
Yeah.
We don't have jurisdiction to dogs. It's a fascinating topic, but it's approaching 8 o'clock. And I just really want to stick to the matter at hand, which is the notice of intent that's before us. Steve, anything else you have before I? move
No,
on?
and I thank you. I'm quite heartened to hear that the storms do not require any any implementation of the beach management plan. But since this has gone on for so long, the question about nesting season and invasive dogs came up, but I appreciate what you said, Mr. Chair. And with that, I'll lower my hand.
Thank you, Steve. Mary, you have your hand up. What
I didn't see the beach management plan in the Dropbox. Has that been submitted?
Yeah, we had it at the last thing, and actually I can share it. Hold on.
Oh, I don't need to go through the whole thing now. I just wanted to make
Right.
sure it was available. I'd like to look at it again.
Yep.
But not to drag things out at all.
Yeah, and you know what I would envision with this, and I'm just gonna re-email it to you guys right now. What I would envision is that, you know, as we live and learn, this can be a living document. We could come back to the commission with modifications to it if as needed.
Yeah, the one thing I was interested in is about the rack management, and rather than removing it entirely from the beach, if it can be put up against the base of the dune or someplace out of the way so that that material is actually beneficial for the beach.
Right. It is, and it's something, you know, DCR also removes it from Salisbury Beach, and it's a struggle because oftentimes the rack line in this area is not just
Maybe it may
natural rack,
contain dirt.
right?
It may contain other materials, so yeah.
Right. I mean, you've all seen what washes up on the beach, and it's not always pretty.
Probably a good idea if they're actually going to be guests there, so yeah.
Okay.
800 million gallons of CSOs washing onto the beach and contaminating the rack. It may be a nutrient from one species on the planet, but it's pathogens for the rest of us.
Right. I mean, I've always thought that, like, for example, the DCR rack that gets collected should be ground up and mixed with sand nourishment projects, especially when you're getting.
Hey, team, why don't we get back on track here with the matters? Are there any other questions from any member regarding the project?
No.
Okay. Do any members have a request for additional information, plan amendment, or adding additional content to the notice?
No.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. All in favor? Mary?
Yes.
TJ? Woody?
Yes.
Brad?
Aye.
Mick?
Mick?
Did you, I didn't hear Mick.
Oh, I said yes.
Do we have
Aye,
Mick
okay.
and TJ still in here? Okay.
You know, Mick is here. Diane?
Yes.
And Bob Connors is yes. I don't know if we've lost TJ or not, but we've got a majority vote.
Okay.
So the worst case, Sean, you would record this vote as 6-0. If TJ hasn't voted on it. All right, team.
All right.
This is
Thank you so much.
well, this is, Tom, don't you want us to consider special conditions and consider voting for your order?
Oh, yeah, actually I do.
Okay, I kind of. See, when we talk about dogs,
Yeah.
what, the passion of all of us, okay, team, this is the time when we talk about, special conditions. We have our usual conditions. I mean, the reality of the stairs were an after the fact, install. Very common along, the coast of Plum Island. And the beach management plan, is self-explanatory, and Natural Heritage has signed off on it and conditioned it accordingly. Mary, any other special conditions you want to add?
Yes, well, there was a draft of the order of conditions that was put in the Dropbox, and it had some conditions that were highlighted. One condition says the order of conditions applies only to after the fact approval of the replacement of beach access stairs and associated site work. Any other proposed work shall apply for amended or separate permits. So I think that's accurate. We're not necessarily approving the beach management plan as part of the order of conditions, because there's another condition that says a permanent beach management plan shall be developed and shall be subject to review and approval by the NCC. This management plan, once approved, may be implemented perpetually, and any conditions therein shall survive the issuance of certificate of compliance. So the order as it's written right now anticipates that a management plan would be developed and it would be approved by us. And then it says all conditions set forth by the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program and outlined in the letter dated July 14th, 2023, referencing the blah, blah, blah file number shall be adhered to.
Where the beach management plan has been attached or incorporated into the NOI, are you thinking, Mary, we should vote both separately?
It hasn't actually been attached to the NOI because it was filed separately as a separate document. So we could approve it as part of this order of conditions and put in the date of its approval. But the way it's written right now, it's not.
Okay, but that was a draft, right?
It's a draft, yeah.
Okay. Tom, let me jump back to you and
yeah, so just I just wanted to remind the commission, I think that was the original draft. Perhaps Sam had drafted that was going to condition submission of the beach management plan, and the commission was uncomfortable with that and wanted the beach management plan to be part of this decision, which is why we delayed and submitted. So just want to point back to the record on that. I know the hearing's closed, but
that makes sense.
So in my view, this was actually submitted as part of the NOI as an addendum submission. So to the extent you want a condition that it can be updated and maintained over the years, I think it's consistent with how that was drafted, but we would envision this order actually approves this, hopefully.
So it would just have to, this order as it's currently drafted would have to include it, then where it lists the notice of intent and the site plans and all the documents that are part of the decision. It would have to include that in the final date of that plan.
Yeah.
Correct.
Brad, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to echo what Tom said. The part of the reason, there were twofold of why Blue was appearing before us. One was the fact that they put the stairs in without a notice of intent or an RDA, and secondly, and I think from my perspective, most importantly, it was to develop the beach management plan so they would not have to come back annually to put the stairs in or take the stairs out or repair the stairs, that they had memorialized in their beach management plan the ability to do just that. So Mary, I agree that particular draft that Sam may have put in there is incorrect, and that we now have the ability to put the conditions on this beach management plan and this notice of intent such that it's memorialized and going forward, they can go do that work.
Yeah,
That was my only comment, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
No, thank you, Brad. So, Tom, what I'm gonna suggest, and you know what, and it's done in a lot of other communities. Uh, Feel free to prepare a sample order of conditions for review and edit by Sean, Mary, and potentially the committee. And I think that way there all the salient, all the points that we're talking about are incorporated, and it's more of a red line just to make sure we want that. So you would share that with Mary and Sean. I
Yep.
think that would be a good approach.
Absolutely. If Sean could email me the draft that was prepared, what I can do is start from that and then edit accordingly, and then get it off. And then I think ultimately probably Mary and Sean should do the final wording on it, but I'm happy to kind of get things started with some suggestions for language.
I would just want it also to be clear that it's doesn't include repair or replacement, or I should say replacement of the existing boardwalks. It includes maintenance of them, but not replacement.
Right.
Now, question, I had a question. So I can't see it unfortunately right now through the software that I have here, but is there something about heavy machinery that we can put in there? Because through GIS, a point got brought up internally that that there's heavy machinery being used on the beach for that site.
Well, whatever's in the beach management plan.
Well, that they scooped it from the lower half of the beach.
Well, under the conditions right now, it reads no equipment is to enter or cross wetland resource areas at any time unless the location of the disturbance is marked on the plans referenced in this order and is within the limit of work shown on the plan. So that's obviously meant for a different condition, an inland condition, but it would also apply to, it applies, that one needs to be revised. I should put it that way.
Okay.
And the source
Yep, I just wanted to clarify that one.
Yeah.
And the reference to upland sand is the source supply, as I recall.
Yeah.
But okay. Well, it's that time. I'd entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions for 18 Fordham Way, the usual conditions, and the inclusion of the beach management plan.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Mary?
Yes.
TJ? Woody? Brad?
Aye.
Hold on. Are people abstaining or are they not?
No. You know what? It seems some people are having trouble staying on. Woody, how do you vote
Yes.
on this? You
My
vote
vote,
yes?
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So only TJ, seems like we've lost TJ. He's out of state. Mick,
Oh, yeah.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. So that's 6-0, Sean.
All right. Thank you very much. And hope you guys have a great night.
Okay.
You too.
Now, Tom,
Thank you.
we have 18 Temple Boulevard, but that's been continued until what, the May
7th, right.
May 7th. Okay. So no
Yep.
further action on that then.
Yep.
Right. All right. And all right, continue public hearing, DEP file number 0501422, 94 Northern Boulevard, for work to conduct landscaping, hardscaping, and paving work. Sean, can you give us an update? I know that the applicant has bounced around on withdrawing this to maybe pursuing it, and I think Tom did she reach out to you on this? Do you want to comment on?
Yeah, I can tell you. So that it's in my queue to review a draft. My understanding is that they've removed a lot of the hardscape and really simplified things, but I need to review it and get it in a condition to bring into you guys. So it is right now in my court, as you guys might imagine. I've got a
Okay.
big whiteboard
So
with a lot on it right
this
now.
is 94.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're on 94.
Yeah, so I was contacted by the owner. She was asking, I don't know if she's here. She asked me if she could attend to ask you guys some questions. I don't know if she's here. If she is,
So
she can
Sean,
definitely speak on her behalf, but it sounds
Sean,
like Tom's taking over.
she had reached out to Tom. I don't know if
Yep.
the owner is here. I don't
Right.
see it.
Certainly if the owner's here, then I don't want to speak for her. But they have asked me to look at things, and the surveyor has prepared a plan for me to look at, and I just it's in my queue. It's the best I can
Well,
say.
do you want to continue this? You want to request a continuance to our May 21st meeting? To give it
If
30
the
days?
owner's not present to do that, then I would ask that I continue to May 7th, just because I haven't talked to the owner about their schedule. So I may then follow up with an additional continuance request, but I'm uncomfortable asking to have it pushed out too far without having talked to the owner about it.
Okay. There's been a request by the applicant to continue the public hearing to May 7th. To our May
So moved.
7th meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, roll call. Mary,
Yes.
TJ, Woody,
Yes.
Brad,
Aye.
Nick.
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes.
All right. Now, thank you and have a great night.
Okay.
Bye,
thank you.
Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right, what do we have left on our agenda here? All right, staff reports.
Excuse me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep, we can hear you.
Hey, so this is Ed Leonard. I was on this to get a certificate of compliance for 61 Elm Street.
61 Elm Street. I don't think I had you on the meeting.
Yeah, we
This
did.
meeting.
You weren't on this agenda.
Oh, no.
Well, Chris emailed me, and I know, Sean, you came out to my house the other day. So I don't know how that got mixed up, but I got this code and stuff for this Zoom meeting through Chrissy. And I guess I got a couple questions anyways for you guys, if you have a second.
Yeah, well, I mean, what, I guess if you're looking for a certificate of compliance, depending on when you requested it and when Sean had a chance to look at it, we usually have a cutoff of the Tuesday before our meeting.
Yeah, no, I filed it with Chrissy probably 2 weeks ago or so.
Okay.
Um,
Well, let me ask you a question. Is there some urgent need where you're refinancing, selling, or something like
No,
that?
no, not at all. It's just my
Okay.
order conditions expired at the beginning of last month, and I've been trying to, just, close everything out and do it the right way.
Well, here's the good news. If you've completed the work and the work complies with the order of conditions, that the certificate of compliance isn't time sensitive to the 3-year period.
Okay.
If that's your concern.
Okay. And the only other thing was when Sean was out there, I know he took some photographs, but I was not sure, do I need to get an as-built of my property? Or is that something that it's just something Sean looks at?
What was it for?
I built a new house at 61 Elm Street, and the order conditions, my driveway was within 100 feet of an intermittent stream.
Oh, yes. I remember this one. So sorry, like I said, I didn't add you to the schedule. His driveway was, or do you want to speak on your behalf?
Yeah, so the only part of the build that was within the 100-foot buffer zone of an intermittent stream was, the first, 150 feet of my driveway, and all the building and everything was outside of it. But I just don't know if I need to get an as-built of the whole property to close out the order of conditions, or if it's something you guys don't need. I just would like to be prepared if you do push me back to the next meetings that I can receive it.
So Sean, question, you've been out to the site?
I have been out to the site. I actually seen it when it was wet there as well. So
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
rain there.
What,
Um,
what does the area look like? Is it stabilized with vegetation?
yeah, I would say it's back to the way it should be. The section that he's talking about is outside of that buffer zone, but for some reason, some parts of the house were I guess it was the underground propane that was kind of notified by us as well. But the driveway part, everything looked good. I can pull up some pictures from that site if you so wish.
No, you know what, we can't take any action on it tonight. I was just curious. It sounds like it's pretty stable site. Mary, thoughts?
Just typically the order of conditions will say whether an as-built plan is required. That's and for a new house, typically you do need some kind of as-built plan so we can document that the foundation is where it's supposed to be. So you should, if you don't have a copy of the order of conditions, which probably do, it's been recorded at
I
the
do.
registry, I presume.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do.
towards the end, it should say whether or not an as-built plan is required in the special conditions, and that will guide you. But even if it's you need some documentation that the work was done according to a plan. Sometimes you can get in a letter from a professional engineer or a land survey that can provide that documentation, and sometimes you need an as-built plan. So it depends on what it says in the order.
Yeah, I think it said,
Either way, you need some documentation.
okay. I believe I did read that. That's why I had that question for Sean when he was out there.
Yeah.
But I think the wording, I didn't know if I needed both or one or the other, but I think you just kind of cleared that up for me.
Well, it depends on the wording.
Yeah. No, yeah.
In that special condition.
Yeah.
And usually you don't need the whole, I don't know how big the property is, but just the work area is what you need.
Yes. Okay.
So if the house is outside of the jurisdiction, does that still apply?
No, it's just the work that would have been subject to our review.
Yes.
Okay, so the driveway.
It would be whatever work was part of.
Yeah, so I needed approval for the whole house, but the driveway was the only thing within the 150 feet, 100-foot buffer. But yes, I'll get an as-built for you guys, and hopefully I can.
If it's just yeah,
if it's
I
just
can't
the
answer the
driveway.
question without seeing the plan and the order of conditions.
Yeah.
I think where Mary was headed was, if the jurisdiction is simply the driveway, that may be all you need, depending on the wording of the order.
Yep.
Okay, well, Jody, we're sorry about that, and why don't you get your as-built, get it into Sean, and we typically handle certificates of compliance and RDAs and stuff like that at the very beginning of the meeting, so you're not sitting 2 hours of.
On the email I got from Chrissy, actually, it said, certificate of compliance was the first thing, so that's why.
Yeah.
I thought you guys, I figured
Well,
you guys
then you should have
missed me.
spoke up. You should have spoke up. Right up.
Yeah, I know.
my friend.
Well, I didn't. I know I was kind of late.
Sorry, Jody.
Yeah, no, listen.
Late to it, but if
yeah.
I can get on next time, that works for me.
Well, here's what to do is, a certificate of compliance doesn't require any advertising. It just requires a submittal. So if your order requires an as-built, you're gonna need an as-built to get, final sign.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, team, it is now 8:20. And I am waiting to hear from Mary on what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has completed the required permitting for this project. Work is authorized through June 1st, 2029. How many acres is that, Mary?
1,450.
Holy cow.
Yeah, they got their final water quality certificate from DEP and Army Corps approval, so they're gonna start that work this month.
Well, that's
It'll
great.
it'll be in phases, but
Yeah.
and then you will be seeing another several hundred acres from the trustees of reservations when they get their phase 3 submission together.
So it's a unified approach in the Great Marshes.
It's the
what they're
same,
attempting.
yes, unified approach. Exactly. There's a kind of a team, including the project designer and a bunch of scientists and restoration practitioners that have been collaborating on developing these new techniques and getting them authorized through DEP. So.
All right, Brad, on CSO releases, it's bad. We've had too much rain, but I don't know if I really want to spend any time talking about it when we're here at, 2.5 hours in on the meeting.
No, I'm good, Mr. Chair. My head wants to explode.
Okay. All right, so Sean.
Yeah, can I ask one at the risk of seeing Brad's head explode? Just, do we have a site visit scheduled for DEP for the 33rd Street project? For the appeal on that?
No, there hasn't.
No.
We filed a notice, town council filed an appearance notice with DEP so that we would be included
Okay.
on
It
that.
hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
town council has been looped in on that, so.
Great.
All right, anything else, team, that Sean, this is what Sean worked on. When we had a meeting with all the players back in February regarding the coastal water bird program. And, in an effort to find a way to protect the birds and educate the public within the constraints of our current bylaws, this is what we crafted, was that we're recommending to people that keep their dogs on a leash near plover nesting. This was going to be installed at every beach access going to the beach. As a good first step, and again, an attempt to protect plovers and terns. So, Sean, did these all get installed? Do you know if they put them up yet?
They have not been installed yet. They are being ordered.
Oh, okay. So it's still
and those are the access sites that they'll be put on or in or near. They're not going to be installed invasively. I mean, oh yeah. So I'm pretty sure it's probably a bucket.
Okay.
Put next onto the right of way.
Okay. All right, team. I don't know about you guys. I'm done. I'm tired. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, Mary,
Aye.
Yes.
Woody, Brad,
Aye.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
Patty, and Bob. Thank you all for your patience
Yeah.
tonight. This
Thanks,
was
everyone.
a bit of a
Good
challenge.
night.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye-bye.